When I first got my hands on Black Ops 2 in November 2012, I was extremely skeptical. After a year of Modern Warfare 3, I was extremely upset with Call of Duty for some reason. Maybe it was teen angst, but I think it was because I was just bad at the game. Regardless of why, I had it in my head that I wasn't going to buy Black Ops 2 to try and get back at the developers for making such bad games. My conviction to follow through with this revolutionary idea was about as strong as a wet napkin, however, as I had my mom rent me the game for the weekend after launch. Upon playing it, I fell in love. Everything in the game was beautiful to my 13-year-old eyes. The campaign was stellar, the multiplayer was fun, and zombies... Well, we'll get to that in a future video. The point is, I deeply regretted my choice to not pre-order the game, and so after the weekend was up, I begged my mom to take me to GameStop to buy my own copy. She agreed, but said it would be part of my Christmas gifts. That was fine with me, as long as I got to play the game right away. Looking back, my decision to boycott the game was utterly stupid, considering it would become my favorite Call of Duty of all time. Truthfully, Black Ops 2 holds more memories for me than probably any other game I've ever played. I remember having friends overnight for double XP weekends, getting up early before school to download and play new map packs, and spending the summer of 2013 staying up late into the night with my friends. I spent hours trying to get a nuclear medal and worked my way up to Master Prestige. This game sunk its claws into me in ways that other games rarely do. It was my everything for almost an entire year. So it might surprise you to know that I only played the campaign once. Yeah, I played through it one time, got one of the worst endings, felt bad, and never went back, despite knowing there were more endings to go for. I was just too captivated by the multiplayer and playing with my friends, much like I was with Black Ops 1. As the years went on, I felt compelled to replay it and go for the best ending, but just never did it. It became this intimidating thing in my mind, like the longer I put it off, the harder it would be to come back. Thankfully, these retrospectives have given me the perfect reason to go for it, and I'm so glad they did. Black Ops 2 managed to sink its claws into me again, even if only for a few days as I recorded my playthrough, and that was a surreal experience. Almost as surreal as realizing the game takes place in 2025, which is only 2 years off from now. God, where does the time go? Anyway, going back to the story of Black Ops 2 was a real treat. It manages to continue the story set up in the first one, while also connecting past and present. Admittedly, the story isn't as tightly written as the first, but that is made up for by the multiple endings and paths you can take throughout the story, something we wouldn't see again for almost 10 years until the release of Black Ops Cold War. As well, custom loadouts, challenges, and Strike Force missions elevate the campaign of Black Ops 2 above the rest with its replay value. Although I only got the best ending for this video, there is certainly enough here to warrant multiple playthroughs if you're motivated by that sort of thing. We'll get to that all in due time, however. For now, let's take a step back to the beginning, and see just what this beautiful game has in store for us. From the past of 1986 to the near future of 2025, there's a lot of ground to cover. So, without further ado, this is Call of Duty Black Ops 2. The first thing I noticed about Black Ops 2 was the calm, mysterious atmosphere the main menu presents with its music and desaturated imagery. It honestly reminded me of Super Metroid's opening a bit, though I think Metroid's is much more ominous than this one. We also get an updated version of the iconic Sitting Bull from the first game, and he oddly looks like Alex Mason in the face, but he's obviously holding a more futuristic pistol. Maybe this is a reach, but this could represent the game's fusing of past and present with Alex Mason and his son, David. Or maybe this is supposed to be David, and I'm reading way too into this. Regardless, we eventually hit start and load into the main menu. What we get this time around is much more tame than what we had in Black Ops 1, but it's still cool how David puts his glasses on and selects the various menu options with his little tack pad. There's no free roaming or even looking around in this menu, but the touch of extra immersion is much appreciated. After selecting our game mode and fiddling with our settings, we finally jump into the campaign, and we start off with a bang.
Secure the building.
Secure the perimeter. Move in! Go!
You might wonder just who's so important to warrant such a show of force, but you don't have to wait long.
Scout every inch of the vault, sir. Except this room.
Safety's on, dipshit.
Of course, it's our old pal Sergeant Frank Woods, now in his 90s but still full of attitude. One neat detail I noticed upon rewatching the footage is that you can see the nameplate on Woods' room before David and Harper enter, but conveniently, the soldier they're with steps in front of it after a few seconds. Anyway, our duo asks Woods if Raul Menendez was there that day, and Harper gives some light exposition that honestly felt a touch forced. After a moment of silence, Woods hands David the pendant that Menendez gave him and warns of an impending attack. This prompts them to get a statement of sorts from Woods, who begins with his rescue from Angola by Mason after he was brought out of retirement by Hudson. This leads into a scene where we see a young David and his father climbing a tree, which David is clearly struggling with. After some solid parenting, a helicopter shows up and David falls out of the tree, which gets Mason to jump down and join him.
Go back to the army, like you did when Mom died.
Such a heartwarming moment between father and son.
Lieutenant Colonel North, NSC. You already know Jason Hudson.
What are you doing here?
Yesterday, Sergeant Woods led a covert team to take out an arms smuggling ring in Angola. This morning, we lost contact.
So go get him, CIA. Why are you here?
Castro and the Russians are all over Angola. We can't go in. The CIA have buried the mission. Woods and his squad no longer exist.
We got whatever you need, Mason. Name it.
David can stay with Jenny, like before. She loves having him. He'll be fine.
Dad, you said you'd never go back to the army. You promised me.
It's Uncle Woods, son. He'd do it for me.
Okay, so I noticed right away that Hudson sounds different than he did in Black Ops 1, and that is because he's no longer voiced by Ed Harris. Now, he's voiced by Michael Keaton. I'm only bringing this up because I found it a bit jarring, especially after immediately coming off the last game. Nothing against Keaton, his performance is great, it was just an unexpected change. So, with our motive established, we jump into the first mission. But, not right away. We're first introduced to one of many innovations that Black Ops 2 made to the campaign, custom loadouts. Much like in multiplayer, you're able to pick and choose a variety of weapons, attachments, equipment, and even perks to load out with before a mission starts. Obviously, the game will give you recommended equipment to go in with, but you can pick and choose to your heart's content. Although you're limited on your first playthrough, the game clearly states that more weapons will become available after later levels, so you're incentivized to come back and try out previous levels with different weapon and perk combinations. It might not seem like much, but being able to build a loadout like this was super fun and really made it feel like I was gearing up before a mission. Unfortunately, this feature didn't become a series staple, but it did return in Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare. Moving on, we finally begin the first mission with a loading screen reminiscent of Black Ops 1's as Woods narrates. The loading screens this time around aren't nearly as stylized, but they're still well made and hold the same charm, which is appreciated. Another thing to note is Woods' proclivity towards how things had to be done back in his time with analog film that had to be secured, developed, and delivered by hand, whereas the digital age is much faster. This is a motif that is interwoven into the game's narrative, and I'll mention it whenever it becomes relevant. Just remember that it's there. With our exposition finally finished, we load into the game.
No! I need help over here! Hold on!
Mason!
Savimbi, you gotta help! Right! Damn it!
The fire finished him. Sometimes it's too late to save a man. We must move out before we join them in death.
Brutal. I'm not entirely sure what purpose this opening serves other than shock value, but it does a damn good job. If you were falling asleep during the cinematics, then you're awake now. It's wartime, baby! Our first taste of combat is in a large open field, as enemies run straight at us with machetes and guns. We gun them down with fury, but they just keep coming. Eventually, we make our way up the hill and take out some dug-in mortar teams to clear the way for Hudson to provide helicopter support. We then take control of Hudson in the chopper and rain down fire on the enemies and their tanks. After one last gunfight section, we finally clear the first part of this level and get our intel on Wood's location.
My friend from above! You killed many men today, huh? Yes! We all did!
Where's Woods?
The MPLA is not yet defeated. That's a very dangerous rescue, my friend! Where is he? He's being held captive by a Nicaraguan gun runner. A very dangerous man. Where? About 2 miles north. He's on a transport barge on the Cubango River. He may already be dead. Let's go, Hudson!
A short cutscene then plays showing how Woods survived the events at Kravchenko's compound. He was captured by the Russian and spent years in captivity before managing to escape and return to the CIA. He was then sent into Angola, where he was captured and tortured by Menendez before being left for dead in the shipping container. Admittedly, I know this is a retcon from the original game so they could bring back Woods as a character, but I think it was handled very well. It's explained in a way that doesn't rewrite events, but rather recontextualizes them. Since Woods wasn't recovered until the mid-70s, it makes sense that Mason, Hudson, and Weaver would presume him to be dead during the events of Black Ops 1. Especially Mason, who was heavily under the influence of Reznanov's brainwashing at the time. I'm not normally a fan of retcons, but when they're handled this well and in a way that doesn't totally break the timeline, I'm okay with them. Back in the jungle, Mason and Hudson find the barge where Woods is and manage to get aboard without issue and begin fighting to take control of the ship. It's also here where we get to use our access kit, if we have it equipped in our loadout. This perk allows us to open normally inaccessible crates or doors to get gear that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. In this particular instance, we get a flak jacket to help reduce explosive damage. This is an excellent addition to the campaign that encourages players to explore a bit more, though I kinda wish it was a passive ability that didn't take up a perk slot. Still, it's cool nonetheless. After equipping our new drip and a very early 2010s style turret section, Mason and Hudson break into the container with Woods inside.
God. Woods, are you in there, brother?
Bodies are badly decomposed. These men have been dead for weeks.
Woods.
Frank? Frank!
It's me. It's me, Mason.
What did they do to him, Hudson?
The gruesome scene we find Woods in is without words, honestly. After the bombastic battles we just fought through, it's truly a sobering moment. After a few moments, Mason finds Woods, who is understandably startled by being touched. What struck me, though, was Woods' expression. You can see the fear in his gaze slowly shift to relief once he recognizes Mason and realizes his nightmare is about to be over. It's a truly human moment that hits really hard. However, this is Call of Duty, and it's been too long since something blew up.
Shit! We got Hyde right on us! Get Woods to cover! Come on, Woods!
Hudson takes Woods to cover while Mason grabs a rocket launcher to take out the Hind. He does so just as the barge runs aground, tossing Hudson and Woods overboard. Mason dives in to rescue the drowning Woods, and the trio make their way to the shore. Knowing that they've attracted the attention of every enemy soldier in the area, Hudson and Mason begin to figure out just how they're going to get themselves and Woods out. They sneak through the jungle, coming across some abandoned structures and... child soldiers? Jesus. Black Ops 2 really cranks up the brutality in this first mission. It doesn't ever stray too far from this, mind you, but it is pretty concentrated in this level. Thankfully, we don't fight children and manage to sneak through the patrols until coming across a radio tower. Mason puts Woods down and makes his way up to the radio operator.
Mullah Rahman. Do not concern yourself with local politics. Prosta marionetka. Как ты. Делай. Как сказано.
You're a dead man unless you do exactly as I say. Tune the radio to...
You're going to kill me, see?
No one move or this fucking gets it!
El americano le está diciendo que no se mueva.
Shut up!
Él piensa que está en control, pero él no
I
es.
said shut up! Lower your weapon! I swear to God, I'll kill this bastard!
Los americanos no saben nada sobre la lealtad. Quizás nosotros deberíamos demostrar.
You son of a bitch!
Since the original plan has gone belly up, our trio escapes into the jungle as enemy soldiers give chase. At multiple points, they stop to fire back at their attackers, but are ultimately cornered when they reach the river. Hudson stumbles as he carries Woods, and Mason is forced to help him.
Come on, Frank! Come on, we're getting out! No. Fucking Russians.
Damn it, no way out.
You thought I would leave you? Huh? Hurry! Come!
Open apertura! Well, we got him, Mason.
Can't kill me.
Holy shit, Woods is a badass! For real though, shout out to that random Cuban soldier for shutting down what was going to be another equip sunglasses moment. I don't think this is the case, but it's my own headcanon that someone at Treyarch felt the same way as me about those moments from the last game, and so wrote this scene in. Even if that's not the case, it's still a great sequence and shows how much of a badass Woods really is. Also, I failed to mention Jonas Zavimbi earlier, so I'm gonna highlight him here real quick. He was the man who gave us the intel of Woods' location, and he's overall just an awesome character. He got me really hyped in the beginning of this level. It's a shame he's only in this single level, but he certainly made an impact with his one appearance.
Here they come! Here they come, my brothers! Fight, my brothers!
What follows is the continuation of Woods' interview that began the whole thing. He connects what happened on that day to what is now happening in 2025. A lot of stuff is brought up, but what's important is that Raul Menendez is the leader of a new movement known as Cordis Die, which is essentially trying to get the US and China to go to war. They do this by staging a cyber attack against China and forging evidence that the White House was responsible. This forces the US government to take down Cordis Die's social media, so in response, Cordis Die burns the director of the CIA alive in his own apartment. It's also brought up that much of the world's technology runs on rare earth elements, which China controls the most of. The implication seems to be that if China and the US go to war, the US would lose because they'd lose their supply of drones. Now, you might be wondering, Calzone, that's all well and good, but why does Menendez hate the US and our characters so much? Well, I'm glad you asked. See, Menendez's father was the leader of his own drug cartel that he built from the ground up. When he became too powerful, the US had him assassinated. This left the young Raul to take over for his father to care for himself and his sick younger sister. As for why he hates us and our team so much, well, we'll get there. Knowing that Menendez's operation is based heavily on cyber warfare, David and his team are sent to Myanmar to investigate a base that Cordis Die has set up there to try and gather any useful intel. This is where the vibe shifts as we get our first taste of the near-future tech that Black Ops 2 heavily marketed. First, with David's little scope that can see clearly at extreme distances, then with his goddamn nano gloves that allow him and Harper to stick to any surface. The pair then swing their way across the side of a mountain with a rope in a very Spider-Man-esque sequence until they reach the rest of their team. Maybe I'm reading too far into this, but I like to see this as a bit of commentary on the fact that no matter how advanced our technology, nature will always be more powerful. I mean, literally, if Harper and David hadn't been using their silly little rope with nano gloves, they wouldn't have been at risk of being pulled off the side of the cliff by a tree that just so happened to get struck by lightning. It's more likely that someone at Treyarch thought this would be an intense moment to throw off the player and nothing more, but it could be more. Especially when you consider this game's strong themes of technology being our downfall. But we'll discuss that idea when we get further in. Anyway, after avoiding certain death, David and the boys get ready for their insertion into the enemy base with wingsuits. They leap off the cliff one by one, and we take control again as David soars through the skies towards his destination. As we get closer, we deploy a parachute and slow ourselves and sneak closer to the base. The futuristic tech becomes even more apparent as we first see enemy soldiers using what is essentially active camo from Halo, realize our gun is equipped with a goddamn X-ray sight, and we've got a wrist-mounted grenade launcher that reminds me a lot of the Doomslayer's soldier-mounted one from Doom Eternal. For real though, I found aiming this wrist-mounted gizmo to be a bit clunky due to how you aim it. This sort of arc thing just doesn't make sense to my eyes. I get that it shows you the angle the grenade will fly, but it just obscures my vision too much to be practical. Confusing technology aside, we eventually fight our way to a grounded drone and have the option of hacking into it to gain an advantage in the battle if you have the access kit equipped. This further highlights the differences between the levels set in the 80s and those set in 2025. The missions set in the past are much more traditional Call of Duty in their gameplay. You have a gun, you shoot the bad guys, easy. Maybe you call on a helicopter occasionally, but it's more about the shooting than anything. In contrast, the 2025 missions have a much greater emphasis on technology and how it can turn the tide of battle. You're given a much wider array of tools to work with or take control of. Or at least you're given the option of using them. It's not necessary to use the new tech of the future levels, which is welcome, but I think not using the new toys waters down the experience quite a bit. Like, why not use the X-ray scopes and swarming drones to your advantage? Why not take control of the giant mech or grounded drone to gain an edge? Again, it's good that these things are mostly optional so you're not forced to use them if you don't want to, but I do think you're a silly goose if you don't use them. And, with that tangent over, we find ourselves at the door of an underground facility set inside the ruins we just fought through. The team and player take a bit of a breather as they contact HQ and work on getting the door open. Once it is open, we make our way inside and get ourselves an active camo. Things seem to be going smooth until the combat kicks off with a literal explosion. Once we make our way to the back of the lab, our team finds a scientist being held prisoner in a container. He's willing to help us with our mission if we protect him. We do so, and he brings us to a nearby chamber where the Celerium is being held.
Quantum entanglement. This single device has more processing power than your entire military infrastructure. Rumors around the lab were that Menendez plans to use it as a basis for a massive cyber attack. I heard talk of something called Karma. It may be the name for the cyber weapon. If Menendez uses a Celerium worm to initiate an attack, there will be nothing anyone can do to stop it. Stop it.
With our Ryzen 8.6 trillion X secured, we fight our way out until linking up with our reinforcements at the exit. Here, we meet Admiral Briggs, our direct commanding officer and a man with a unique vocabulary.
He finally got one over on this cocksucker.
He's just a man, Admiral. He'd like you to think he's something more. But he ain't nothing but a sad, old, pitiful excuse of a man.
It's back to the past with the next mission, where we're once again in the sandy boots of Mason alongside Woods, who is looking much better than when we last saw him. The pair talk for a bit before their Chinese allies arrive, led by a man named Tian Zhao. He offers up a pair of horses for our heroes to ride on, but before he does, Mason has to grab something.
Mason, it's Hudson. Did you make contact with Zhao?
We're on our way to the Mujahideen camp now.
What the hell are you gonna do with that?
You never know.
With our new weapon in hand, we ride towards the base of the Mujahideen. We are assisting in exchange for information about Menendez. As we talk, the Russians begin their attack on the base, and we're thrust into combat once again. The first thing I noticed about this level was just how wide open it was. You're given what feels like an entire desert to roam as the battle rages all around you. The second thing I noticed was that the horses controlled like shit. Seriously, I have yet to play a game that makes horse riding not a chore. Anyway, we make our way around the desert, blowing up Russian armor and taking back strategic locations. Eventually, we link back up at the base for one final defense. We watch a group of Russian tanks advance before beginning our charge. In a torrent of bullets and explosions, Mason's horse is killed and lands on top of him as an enemy tank approaches.
Mission! Come on, brother! Bring us alongside the tank! Here, catch!
Must die.
That's right, our boy Kravchenko was leading the charge of the Russian attack, and with him comes a flood of memories for Mason as the numbers dance in his vision and Reznov's voice echoes in his ears. Though it does seem he has more control than he did before, as he's able to ignore Kravchenko just long enough to blow up the tank. If Woods wasn't there to stop him, however, he would have killed the Russian right then and there. We get to see what effect this has on Mason as he holds his face with his hands at the very end, but this is only the beginning.
Piece of shit! Of course he's involved in all this.
Kravchenko must die.
Couple times, I saw the tick. And I get that look in his eyes, he's scanning the room. Next thing you know, he's talking to the Russian. Fucking Reznov. Good old Tricky Vic.
With Kravchenko captured, we bring him back to base for interrogation. It's here where the campaign's story can first branch off. As Mason, we're in the room where Kravchenko is held and watch as Woods questions him.
Raman tells me you're doing business with a Nicaraguan named Raul Menendez. What do you do for him? You believe in an eye for an eye? Huh? This is a Mujahideen, baby. They'll bury you up to your neck, peel your eyelids back, and leave you to fry in the desert. I'll take you out quick. Tell me about Menendez.
We need to resist the urge to kill Kravchenko while Woods interrogates him, and each time this happens, it gets much harder. If you do manage to hold back, it's revealed that Menendez has a mole within the CIA, and Woods kills Kravchenko. If you don't manage to hold back and kill Kravchenko prematurely, you don't learn about the mole. Each of these outcomes has an impact on the overall story, and in order to get the best ending, you must resist. No matter which way Kravchenko dies, the ending of this level remains the same, however. The Mujahideen turn on our crew, beating, kidnapping, and eventually leaving them all for dead in the desert. Thankfully, after some time, a friendly group shows up to rescue them. But in an unsurprising twist, Mason sees Reznov among the rescuers as the mission ends. Before we jump into the next mission, Time and Fate, we're shown a message stating that a couple of Strike Force missions have become available for a certain amount of time. These missions are optional RTS-like levels which influence the ending you get. So they're not really optional if you're going for a specific ending, but you don't have to play them to proceed. Since I am going for the best ending, and they're unique to Black Ops 2, however, I think it's important to discuss them a bit here before we continue with the main story. There are 5 total Strike Force missions in the game, but 2 of them are only playable under certain conditions, which I will mention when we get to those points in the main story. The 3 that are available regardless are Fob Spectre, Shipwreck, and IED. In all of these levels, we're given a single specific goal and a handful of units we can control to help us succeed in our mission. For example, in Fob Spectre, you must defend a base from enemy attacks. In Shipwreck, you have to disable enemy defenses in order to destroy a freighter carrying heavy munitions. We complete our objectives in many ways by using soldiers, drones, mechs, and sentry guns. We can order units to certain locations around the map, or we can take control of a single unit, be it soldier or machine, and directly influence the battle. On paper, it sounds fairly interesting and is a definite departure from the usual Call of Duty formula. There's just one problem. It almost never turns out how you want it to, and more often than not, I found myself ordering all my units to a single location while I ran around and did everything. Maybe it's because I wasn't playing on Veteran, but I found each of these levels to be extremely easy, and I only did them because they're required for the best ending. Otherwise, they felt more like chores than actual levels I wanted to engage with. I mean, hell, I didn't even bother with the RTS aspects of the mode, like, at all. It'd be interesting to see Call of Duty take another crack at something like this, but considering the lukewarm reception these levels got, I doubt we'll ever see that. Still, I will give Treyarch points for trying something new even if it flopped. I respect that a lot. With that little side tangent out of the way, let's get back to where we were. Time and Fate is one of the most unique levels in a game, which is full of them. Much like Rebirth from Black Ops 1, this level features the same timeline of events happening from 2 perspectives. We begin as Mason alongside Woods and Hudson as we look over Menendez's villa, peering in with binoculars to confirm he's there. As we watch, the camera slowly zooms into the room, and we transition into the eyes of Menendez himself as he peers into the mirror and watches over his sleeping fister, Josefina. After a moment, some Nicaraguan soldiers break into the room to capture him. While he's being restrained against the wall, one of the soldiers approaches Josefina and hurts her while insulting her appearance. This sends Menendez into a rage. He breaks free of his captor's hold easily and brutally murders the soldier who hurt his sister before being restrained again and sedated. When he comes to, Menendez is greeted by Nicaraguan President Manuel Noriega, who quickly murders his own soldiers in cold blood and frees him so Menendez will owe him. Noriega is rewarded for this in a way that would make the Doomslayer proud.
Call it fame.
With a shotgun in hand, we begin our one-man assault back to the villa to rescue Josefina. Fueled by pure rage, Menendez tanks tons of bullets while brutalizing anyone who dares get in his way. This whole section has a nice power trip and did remind me a bit of Doom, but in a sort of diet way. Menendez is nothing like the Doomslayer, but I wouldn't be surprised if Doom was an inspiration for this part, what with the shotgun and merciless slaying of foes. Anyway, we eventually make it to the hallway outside Josefina's room, but are stopped by Woods and Mason at the other end. Woods fires a barrage of bullets, which miss their target, but Menendez is stopped by Hudson before he can enter Josefina's room. Suddenly, a grenade flies into view, bounces into the bedroom, and detonates in a blinding white light. The scene fades in from the white to show David talking to Woods about the whole thing, and it's revealed that Woods threw the grenade. He explains why he lost it when he saw Menendez and goes into more detail about how he ended up in the shipping container.
Frank, you don't lose your shit! What the fuck did Menendez do to you in Angola?
Does he? He wanted to know what the CIA had on him. Tortured my men in front of me. Thought I'd break. But when I watched my team die, then he dumped us in a tin can and locked the door. Left me in there for weeks. So yeah, next time I saw Menendez, I lost my shit. What the fuck would you do?
It doesn't really need to be said, but that seems like more than enough of a reason to want revenge, and the blinding anger that comes with it. After the cutscene, we begin the level 15 minutes earlier as Mason once again. Woods unknowingly insults Josefina, and the attack on the villa begins once Menendez is being captured. This part of the level plays like your standard Call of Duty level, with lots of shooting and such, until our trio sees Menendez on his rampage.
Wait. No, can't be. What? Fucking Noriega! His men were supposed to secure Menendez. Menendez! Woods! Frank! You need to get your shit together now. It's not! This isn't the way. We're on mission. He's headed to the house. We'll get him, but we do it as a team. Come on.
With Woods calmed down for now, we continue on mission to the villa, where we hope to recapture Menendez. Eventually, they come to a small courtyard, and Hudson sends Woods and Mason into the basement to flush out any enemies. Hudson tells Mason to keep an eye on Woods, and we begin clearing the basement. It's here where the story can change again depending on our actions. See, in this basement is a CIA memo, but what you'll probably have noticed by now is that the cartel members are burning all the documents they can, so the entire basement is in flames. The specific memo we're looking for can burn up if we don't get to it quick enough. Thankfully, we get the memo before that happens and make our way out of the basement. Once we're back on the surface, Wood's anger gets the best of him again, and he rushes ahead of Mason. Once they've regrouped, they burst through a doorway, and the hallway scene plays out once again, except this time, we see it from Mason's perspective.
Woods, no!
When he comes to after the explosion, Mason climbs out of an impressive amount of rubble for a single grenade and watches a body bag get carried away. Hudson says it's Menendez, but we as the player know that's bullshit because he's still alive in 2025. Of course, Mason and Woods don't know this, and the level ends there. Back in 2025, David and his team are trapped in the back room of a flooding store, trying desperately to get their claw mech to work. They manage to do so, and fight their way out of the store and onto the street. A storm rages overhead, causing the flooding to worsen quickly, and I love it. If you saw my previous video on Black Ops 1, you know I'm a sucker for rainy levels in games. Though I usually prefer them to be a tad calmer or melancholy, I enjoy the atmosphere nonetheless, and having us fight through the flooded streets only adds to that enjoyment. However, the claws don't love the water as much as I do, so they need to be taken to higher ground. To accomplish this, David splits his team up, with 2 members taking the mechs to the rooftops, while Harper and David himself continue moving on the street. Eventually, they escape the combat, but must sneak through the ruined streets as an automated flying drone patrols through the area. This section is closer to the vibes I look for in rainy levels. The quiet atmosphere, punctuated by rainfall, and the low whirring of the drone as it scans the street for targets is a great pace breaker after the chaotic battle we just endured, and the cat-and-mouse style really emphasizes the drone's overwhelming power. All we need now is some noir jazz a la Halo 3 ODST, and we'd have something truly beautiful. After avoiding the drone, David and Harper finally make it to Menendez's stronghold, where they're going to follow him closely in order to gather intel. This is another thing that the player can mess up, though I'm not really sure that's possible without intentionally doing so. There are 3 key moments where Menendez is able to be recorded, and if the player fails at any of these sections, the objective is considered failed. It's extremely easy to do, which did make this segment drag on. The most interesting thing about this part of the level is where you have to go to get the 3rd piece of intel, honestly. Harper and David leap down from a rooftop and take out a pair of guards near a vehicle. The pair then make their way through a nearby doorway. This moment is such a cool callback to Black Ops 1. We're using many of the same assets from that game to create this scene. As players, we are all too familiar with what went down in rooms like these if we played the last game. Harper even acknowledges the significance of the setup before he and David continue on their mission.
Let's move. At one point in time, the CIA had interrogation rooms like this all over the world. All of them was geared towards some sort of psychological manipulation. God knows the kind of shit that went down back then. Looks like
What follows is an eerie underwater section where David trails Harper on their way forward. That was cute. Anyway, our duo find themselves right beneath Menendez to try and gather more intel.
they should be right above us.
Okay, let's try this again.
Of course. Not only am I aware of the infiltration, I engineered it.
God damn! He's onto a section! Look out! Grenade!
With our mission compromised, we must fight our way out of the stronghold, using the claws for support. Eventually, we clear out enough enemies which allows Salazar to come to us with some hovercraft-like vehicles. We load up and begin our escape with a drone Salazar hacked and stole from our enemies. We alternate between driving on the ground and flying the drone as the sun rises on our getaway through the destroyed city. This is also a moment where the story can be altered. In the very last driving section, there's a large pipe which bursts and spews flames. If you drive into it, Harper's face gets badly burned and he'll be scarred for the rest of the game. If you avoid it, no harm comes to him and he says a pretty funny line about it. I'm not entirely sure if this has any major effect on the story or is just a cosmetic thing, but I do believe it can change part of the next level, which I'll talk about momentarily. In my playthrough, I didn't let Harper get burned, and we make our way to the exfil, but are stopped by a familiar face.
Okay, whoa, hey, take it easy. Forces should not be in Pakistan.
Tian Zhao, he fought alongside my father in Afghanistan.
Tian Zhao, the same Chinese soldier we fought alongside in Old Wounds, is now the chairman of the SDC, a Chinese-led East Asian military alliance. He's also gained a reputation for being a bit of a wild card, which his government doesn't totally care for. This is an important detail for later. For now, Zhao lets us go since our only interest in Pakistan is Menendez. In my favorite level of the game, Karma has our team consisting of David, Harper, and Salazar travel to Colossus, an exotic floating resort where they believe the Karma weapon is being held. With some help from their inside man, Farid, the group is given disguises and ID badges which give them access to some areas. While still undercover, we get to walk through the resort and experience some of what Treyarch believed civilian life would be like in 2025. In retrospect, this view of the future is a bit out there, what with the advanced security systems and biometric advertisements, but it's also interesting to see what people believed 2025 would be like. I'm sure many aspects were exaggerated in order to differentiate the near future from modern warfare. However, I can't help but think that some of this did seem somewhat realistic back in 2012. Back then, 2025 was far off, a point so distant in the future it was incomprehensible. Now, it's less than 2 years away. But I've already experienced that existential crisis once in this video, I'm gonna avoid it again for now. Back in the game, Harper splits off from the group as we ride an elevator down to a lower level. As he gets off, he bumps into a woman who he tries to act smooth with. She brushes him off easily, and will notice his scarred face if he was burned in the previous level. With Harper out, the elevator continues down with David and Salazar.
Hey, you shouldn't be in here.
We have Union IDs.
After clearing out some foes, David and Salazar make their way to a side room where David deploys Ziggy, a little spider-like robot to infiltrate the server room. This whole segment was quite fun, even if it did trigger my arachnophobia a tad bit. Scurrying through the vents and jumping between pipes was enjoyable and definitely not expected for Call of Duty. As we move along, we notice that the enemy PMCs are planting explosive charges around the resort to blow it sky high after they've secured Karma. We continue through the vents until we arrive at our destination and do something which makes my skin crawl every time.
Take some section.
Scanning now.
What do we have here?
Ziggy, no! Our little friend's sacrifice was not in vain, however, as we got the retinal data we needed to enter the server room ourselves. After clearing it out of PMCs, we get to the main computer and begin searching for Karma.
This will work, Farid?
I thought you had faith in me. Okay, we're in.
The Karma weapon may have been smuggled on board alongside regular supplies. Search supply manifest, keyword Karma. Nothing. Search automated security systems, keyword Karma. We're missing something. Search security camera image database, text recognition, Karma. There. Karma isn't a weapon. It's a woman.
Chloe Lynch, former employee of Tacitus, recently resigned.
Now we know her name. We can track her location on the ship.
In a bit of a plot twist, the team discovers that Karma isn't a weapon or object, but a woman named Chloe Lynch. In fact, she's the same woman that Harper bumped into after he got off the elevator. The team begins closing in on Chloe's location, with David and Salazar fighting their way through the sublevels while Harper gets to her on the main floors. Once they reach some elevators, David and Salazar split up. As we ride the elevator upwards, we get video feed from Harper's POV as he reaches Chloe. As David, we make our way into the nightclub and link up with Harper. Before we can get Chloe out, though...
Section! At least 10 mercs taking hostages!
Chloe Lynch! He's got hostages. Hold tight. Chloe! Salazar, take the shot.
No shot. Too many hostages.
5 seconds, Chloe! No!
No!
Open fire!
Kill that thick fuck.
Your left! Your left! Moving! Let's go! The main doors are out! Last minute! Good!
DeFalco has Karma. We're in pursuit. We need you to track the movements, Farid. We can't let him get off the ship.
Holy shit, that was awesome! I had me some goosebumps when I replayed this section. Everything from the music, the sparks, the flashing light, the slow motion. It all comes together in a fluid sequence that feels very John Wick-esque, almost 2 years before the first movie came out. Yeah, you could argue that it's nothing more than a glorified QTE or that the dubstep is corny, but I don't really care. The rule of cool absolutely applies here, and I was grinning like an idiot the entire time it was happening. Anyway, with the nightclub cleared, Farid begins tracking Chloe through the resort. He gives us her location just as the resort begins to shudder from the explosives. What follows is a mad dash across the entire place as we race to get to Chloe before she's taken away. Now, I want to take a moment to highlight just how pivotal this sequence is and the different ways it can play out. The most convenient is rescuing Chloe here and killing DeFalco in the process. Oh, I guess I should say that DeFalco is Menendez's second-in-command, and we saw him in the previous mission. The next way things can play out is having DeFalco escape with Chloe. If this happens, a strike mission called Second Chance will become available, and if the title didn't give it away for you, this is a second chance to rescue Chloe, as without her, the best ending is impossible to get. So, while saving Chloe isn't strictly necessary in this level, it really is if you want to avoid doing another strike mission, which I did. And oh boy, did I pay for it. For some reason, Treyarch made DeFalco have extra health despite the fact he's only wearing a goddamn sweatsuit, his weapon does an insane amount of damage, and he doesn't miss a single shot. Add in his 2 goons, a significant distance, and my puny little SMG, and you've got a recipe for a frustrating conclusion to what is otherwise a beautiful level in my eyes. Seriously, I died so many times at this single part alone, either because my weapon was ineffective at the range required, or because I'd get gunned down in seconds if I didn't dive for cover immediately. But even then, DeFalco or his goons would find me and obliterate me like I was a zombie man from the original Doom. However, I persevered, and the brick wall that was this fight caved against the force of my forehead. I rescued Chloe, and the level came to a close. Thank God, it's over. In the final mission taking place in the past, Suffer With Me finds us in the boots of Frank Woods fighting alongside Mason for the first time. I only bring that up because I thought it was cool, kinda like how we played as Reznov in Black Ops 1 alongside Dmitri. Like, seeing the character we always play as from another POV is interesting. Anyway, as the fighting begins, Mason mentions that Hudson has been acting oddly cagey with information, and the team's cons have been bugging all day. Which should be setting off alarm bells, because despite Woods claiming this happens all the time, it never happens in Call of Duty unless something bad is about to go down. But there's nothing we can do. So we continue fighting through the streets on our way to Manuel Noriega's location. Our plan is to plant evidence in his hotel room to destroy his reputation in order to get closer to Menendez. Once we get there, though, Hudson changes the plan suddenly.
Ready, Woods?
Let's do it.
Secure him.
Give me a reason to blow your head off. Come on.
And what are you doing?
Sealing your reputation.
This is not a deal. Call your boss.
Put your ass in a chair.
Hudson, it's Mason.
Go ahead, Mason.
Post profit secure. Moving to extract.
No, negative. Stand by for new tasking. Objective False Prophet has intel on a priority Nexus target. Escort him as PC to alternate location for prisoner exchange. More to follow.
Precious cargo, my ass.
Nexus target? Who's more important than this asshole?
I don't like it either, but let's just get this done. We're burning too much time.
Even if there's people in the CIA. Fucking Kravchenko. Remember what he said in Afghanistan?
What about the CIA memo in Menendez's compound? There's something else going on here, Woods.
The mission was snatch and grab. The fucking Hudson gets on the radio. Says that Noriega is not the mission. He's a handoff. He's a prisoner swap. And right fucking then I should have known. Like, right then and there. I should have known right then and there. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? The fuck? Just take it easy, man. Just take it easy. Fucking Hudson. I should have smoked him in Nam.
In spite of their doubts and acknowledgement of the CIA's ties to Menendez, Mason and Woods follow their new orders and escort Noriega to safety for a prisoner exchange. They do so and get into position to overlook the exchange. Mason is located nearby, and Woods is with Noriega, who informs him that the prisoner is Raul Menendez. During this time, communication with Mason is lost due to the bugging comms, and Woods again remembers the CIA's involvement with Menendez, which implies he has some idea of their plans. Outside of the game, we as the player know Menendez is alive in 2025, so this cannot be him. A restrained man is then brought out with a bag on his head, and we're told to shoot him in the head. We can either do that, or go for a non-lethal shot like the leg. Out of all the choices we've made so far, this is arguably one of the most critical. Killing this prisoner outright prevents you from getting the best ending, so I chose to shoot him in the leg. Twice. This leads to a cutscene showing Noriega and Woods walking towards the prisoner. The music begins to build in the background as Noriega gets a smug look on his face. Woods begins to panic and runs towards the prisoner.
The fuck is going on? What's going on here? No. Mason!
Fool.
You bastard! Fuck! Menendez!
After this climactic scene, Woods awakens to find Hudson tied to a chair, Mason's body lying nearby, and a young David barely conscious next to his father. Hudson admits that Menendez used David to manipulate Woods and Mason to get them into position. Menendez then enters and says one of the three must die. Woods, Hudson, or David. Considering both Woods and David are alive in 2025...
Fuck! Okay, me! Do it! Do it!
Yeah. Anyway, Menendez then tells Woods that he will now suffer with the loss of his friends like he had to when his sister was killed. Menendez then goes over to David and speaks with him before leaving. Then, David comes to and finds his father lying next to him. He cries over his father's body, but if Mason was not shot in the head, his face will twitch slightly as the cutscene fades to black. This level is mostly your standard Call of Duty fare, with the simple shooting the series is known for, but what it lacks in gameplay, it makes up for in spades with story importance. I mean, if you play this wrong, you literally kill the protagonist of the previous game. In retrospect, much of that moment is foreshadowed to you, even if you hadn't got the CIA intel. I already mentioned the comms and how foreboding that can be, but Hudson being cagey and how the mission objective changes right as you're about to complete it is more obvious that something is up. However, much like with Reznov in the previous game, we as players trust Hudson instinctively because we know him. We fought alongside and as him in the last title, and so think he could never steer us wrong. But he did. And for a reason you really can't fault him for. He had to save David's life. So rest in peace, Mr. Shades. We'll miss you and your cheesy sunglasses. The next mission has us playing as Farid, our friend from the mission Karma, who is our inside man close to Menendez. Literally in this instance, as we find the angry old man talking about a traitor in his midst, but he's unsure who it could be. This, of course, puts Farid on edge, but he continues to play along, following Menendez out to a stage where he gives a rousing speech to his followers before the event is swarmed with drones. Menendez tells Farid to meet him at a place called the Citadel, and we're off. During all of this, Harper is in our ear, giving us updates on the situation and guiding us on what exactly to do. That is, until we reach the Citadel.
Buddy!
American blood on your hands, Freddy.
Of course, Menendez. We must get you to safety. We have lost too many men.
Victory is not measured by losses.
Farid, are you still with me? We're hit! We're going down! Measured by games. Damn it! Ah, fuck!
Here! No! Oh, man! You knew that I would be here. Who betrayed me?
You're wasting your time, you fucking bastard, you! You won't get shit from me! Good! Come on, is that all you got? Huh? Fade!
Kill him.
Yeah, that's it! Kill me, egghead! And you spineless piece of shit! Getting others to do your dirty work! What kind of man are you? Huh?
Show your loyalty by following my orders, buddy.
Do it! Egghead! Do your job! Now, buddy! Do it, man!
Another pivotal story moment where we're given a choice that influences the ending. This one is particularly interesting though, because shooting Menendez seems to be the right call here. The player has no outside knowledge indicating that this will fail, and we don't want to kill Harper despite him subtly telling us to do so we don't blow our cover. If you choose to try and shoot Menendez, however, it'll fail. Farid will be killed instead of Harper, but that will have a big impact on later events. So, in order to get the best ending, we have to kill Harper here. Afterwards, a short cutscene plays showing David and Salazar coming in to take Menendez. He escapes, but Farid is left behind to link up again with David. He shows remorse for killing Harper, but David forgives him for it and has a soldier take Farid away while he and Salazar pursue Menendez. They catch up with him eventually, but David notes just how easy it was. Menendez surrenders with no resistance and is pleased to see David again. He's then taken into military custody aboard the USS Barack Obama, which is cool, you know, because Obama was president when this game was released, so shout out to my boy Barack. Anyway, Menendez refuses to speak to anyone other than David, so he's brought into the interrogation room with Salazar. Menendez then monologues for a bit about his motivations before turning the mirror to David, asking him what his motivations are. As soon as he finishes, David gets a warning from Admiral Briggs that a plane has entered the Obama's airspace. This plane quickly deploys a fleet of drones which attack the ship. David tries to leave and defend the vessel, but is shocked to find that Menendez has broken free of his restraints and is now holding Salazar hostage. After a short standoff, David puts his gun down and is knocked unconscious by Menendez. Sometime later, David is awoken by Salazar, and they gear up to assist with the defense of the ship. Briggs contacts us and explains that the entire fleet's system has been compromised by a cyber attack, so many of their automated defenses are no longer under their control. He then tells us to get the systems working, and we set about doing that. It quickly becomes apparent, though, that we won't be able to do that easily, so Admiral Briggs decides to completely shut down and reboot the entire system. At this point, comms have completely gone offline, so David is unable to warn Briggs that Menendez is waiting for him to shut down the system. We then shift to Menendez's POV outside of the control room just as the system is shut down. We enter silently alongside a random soldier and take Briggs hostage. We walk to the main computer with the Admiral at gunpoint, forcing the other soldiers in the room to stand down. At the back of the room is Salazar, so Briggs orders him to shoot through him to hit Menendez. What happens instead is the culmination of everything we've done so far in the campaign.
No!
Okay, so there are multiple ways this scene can play out depending on who's alive and who's not. If we fail to rescue Karma, she won't be there to help stop the cyber attack after Menendez leaves. If she is there, but Farid was killed, then she will be killed regardless. If Farid is there, however, he will jump in front of the bullet meant for her, and she will be able to stop the cyber attack. The last scenario is what is needed for the best ending, so that's what I just showed you. No matter how the scene plays out, the revelation that Salazar was a double agent came out of nowhere. From what I can tell, the only foreshadowing we had for this was the fact he grew up around the time Menendez came to power, and the fact he was in the interrogation room when Menendez broke free. This explains how the old man was able to break free and overpower Salazar so easily. Otherwise, there was nothing signaling to us that this was going to happen. With damn near everyone in the room dead, Menendez is then given the choice to spare or kill Admiral Briggs. Again, for the best ending, we spare him and sit at the computer. Menendez pulls out and breaks his glass eye to reveal a chip inside. He plugs the chip into the computer and uploads a Celerium virus which compromises the entire fleet's system and gives him complete control of the entire fleet of drones. Our perspective shifts back to David, and we enter the control room through a vent and find the aftermath of Menendez's actions. Since Chloe survived, she rushes to the computer and begins working to bring down the virus. David, meanwhile, pursues Menendez, but cannot reach him before he escapes. Along the way, he runs into Salazar, who has surrendered without incident. David orders him to be taken away, and he heads to the deck to secure a VTOL for his escape. He manages to do so, and we transition into the penultimate level of the game. Cordis DA is by far the coolest level in the entire game. It features the most expansive use of the sandbox and the Storm PSR, a sniper rifle which has an X-ray scope and can penetrate extremely thick surfaces if given enough charge time. I seriously love this thing. Its design is gorgeous. The ability to charge up and penetrate damn near anything is so satisfying, and its reload animation is crisp. It also reminds me vaguely of the assault rifle from Area 51, a game from my childhood that I may cover someday here on the channel. Anyway, back to Black Ops 2. The level begins with us riding with the US president on our way to a bunker for her to be secured in. As we drive, we're blown off the road by drone fire. For the first of many times, we're knocked unconscious for a bit before crawling out of the rubble to continue the fight. This time, we hop across a precarious gap and control an AA gun to take out the circling drones. We do, and leap from the vehicle as it rocks and falls off the overpass. A friendly jet then shows up to assist us in escorting the president, and we make our way over to a collapsed part of the overpass. Here, we're given the choice to either snipe or rappel down to the street below. Obviously, I'm gonna snipe, since it's the perfect opportunity to use the Storm PSR, my beloved. Eventually, the president and her escort make it to some heavily armored vehicles and load up. David makes his way to them and hops into the vehicle leading the convoy. He drives ahead for some time, but gets T-boned by a semi and is knocked unconscious for a short time. Again. When he comes to, he's tasked with protecting the French president, who is bogged down nearby. He makes his way through the war-torn streets and even takes down an enemy claw with the Storm PSR. See, I told you this thing was cool. Once he reaches the area where the French president's vehicle is being held down, he fights off the approaching hostiles. Meanwhile, overhead, our jet escort takes significant damage and has to land nearby. And at the end of all of this, a freaking building collapses and knocks David unconscious again. Seriously, the guy has to have a concussion by now, there's no way he doesn't. When he comes to for the third time, David hops into the jet left behind by our escort as she's taken off for medical care. This is the final vehicle section in the entire game, and it's a doozy. We're tasked with providing overwatch for the US President's convoy once again, except this time we have to handle ground and air targets. It's easy work for our jet though, until we're shot down as soon as our objective is completed.
Structural integrity compromised. Damage warning.
That was pretty ballsy moves up there, soldier.
Judgment Day begins with a halo jump into a facility located on the west coast of Haiti. This is where Menendez is supposedly controlling the drones from, so our mission is to regain control of the machines from here and capture or kill Menendez if possible. Our insertion doesn't go as smoothly as it could have, but we reach the ground safely regardless and begin to fight up to the main building. I gotta say, I love this opening section. There's tons of verticality and wide open space, which creates a lot of diverse engagements that require both a medium and long-range weapon. The setting itself is also quite beautiful as a sort of tropical industrial area. It's very bright and colorful, which is something most of the levels in this game have, but I felt compelled to mention it here specifically. That's something Black Ops 2 did better than most Call of Duties, come to think of it. The punchy, vibrant levels are great eye candy. which is ironic considering most 7th generation games were notoriously washed out with grays and browns in the name of realism. So having some actual color was and still is a nice change of pace from the drab, oppressive atmosphere most mainstream shooters go for. Once we're inside, we fight our way to a huge room filled with screens and computers. Unfortunately, David and his team are unable to gain control of the drones, and Menendez begins live streaming to his followers. In this stream, he gloats about his destruction of Los Angeles from the previous level and claims he could have killed the US president 1,000,000 times over, but he instead does something completely unexpected.
Doña Presidente, I could have buried you 1,000,000 times over. No. I wanted you to see it. To feel what it's like.
The drones are being controlled from Haiti. What? Sir, there's nothing more we can do.
Today,
we cannot regain access to the drones.
2 billion people exist in abject misery, tyrannized by war.
He's ready to strike New York. You gonna stop it?
Doña Presidente.
What the fuck?
Your war machines are...
He self-destructed the drones.
Your military...
Why?
...is crippled. You cannot stop us now. For this day. Rise and strike while they are down. Strike now and strike deep.
With the drones destroyed, Menendez has a gamers rise up moment and begins to flee the facility, which is now being torn apart by explosives. David realizes this might be his last chance to get Menendez and begins fighting through the collapsing facility towards his location. As he goes, he slides under a partially open door and the floor gives out from beneath him. What the? Oh, okay, wait, let me just... Fuck! Fuck, man! Ah!
Murder me for Odysseus.
Guys! David!
I will see you 1 year from now. Study Ulysses. Be ready.
No. He's just a sad old man talking to himself. Let him talk.
I have absolutely no idea what happened in that ending, but I felt like my sensitivity or aim assist was being screwed with by the slow motion. I couldn't quite land the second shot no matter what. It really pissed me off considering this was supposed to be David's epic moment of triumph over Menendez, and I kept fumbling it. Anyway, of course, we spare Menendez for the best ending, but if we had killed him, his followers would have rioted across the entire world, leading to the global conflict Menendez wanted to incite. That doesn't come to pass, however, and we get to reap the rewards of our efforts with the best ending.
Do not enter. I swear to God, I will shove this wheelchair right up your
ass. Hey, Woods. You look like hammered shit.
You stay right there. Mason, I shot you.
Turns out you're a lousy shot.
My ass. Where the fuck you been for 30 years?
Colonel Kurtz. Solarium worm attacking the electrical grid. Power stations. Water distribution. It's every state. Oh wait, it's all over the world.
Get me the president.
Chill out, jerk off, I got it.
David Mason for Sergeant Woods.
Another Mason?
Oh, fuck. Secure the building.
Hey, kid.
Jesus,
Come on.
Frank.
Introduce you to somebody. Al, this is Dave. Dave.
How you doing?
This is your dad.
Dad. What the fuck?
Oh, you got a couple of fucking broads. Work this shit out on your own. Need some smokes. There's bat shit! Where's my smokes?
You still got that scar? You made me proud that day.
I fell.
Yeah. But you got back up.
So I guess you're famous now for saving the world. It's very rare that we have a celebrity that has actually done something. You're not into a reality show, are you?
Oh. You got it, Jimmy.
Okay. So, I mean, tell me what this is like. It must be a great day to be you.
Yeah. And it's a bad day to be Raul Menendez.
Unfortunately, it's never explained where Mason was for the last 30 years, but seeing him alive and reuniting with his son is a beautiful thing. And seeing Menendez rotting in a prison cell is also a beautiful thing. The best part is yet to come, though. There's a post-credits scene where we see Menendez and Woods preparing for a concert. As they speak, two members of the band Avenged Sevenfold approach and talk to the two characters. They all then head out to the stage and perform in the nightclub from Karma. In the crowd are various characters from the campaign jamming out. Notably, there's a scene with Mason where he's dancing with Reznov one second, but then Reznov vanishes the next. Mason himself looks confused by this, which is a nice nod to his story. Overall, the scene was an epic way to send off the game. For a 13-year-old me who was obsessed with Avenged Sevenfold, it was literally perfect. Combining Call of Duty with my favorite band at the time? Truly the stuff dreams are made of. I wish I could play this entire scene for you all here, but YouTube would strike me down so fast if I did that. So I'm just gonna encourage you to play the game for yourself or look it up elsewhere. It's something I doubt we'll ever see again in a Call of Duty game, but I'm happy it exists nonetheless. And that was Call of Duty Black Ops 2, a phenomenal, defining title from my childhood. Much like Black Ops 1, I was quite nervous coming back because it had been so long, but what I found was almost better than I remember. The key word there being almost. I don't think Black Ops 2 is bad by any stretch of the imagination, don't get it twisted. Looking at it with a more critical eye just changed my perspective on it a tad. For starters, I gotta mention the confusing timeline of events. Obviously, there's the past and the present, both of which are presented linearly through their respective levels, but what got me confused was the cutscenes. It's not entirely clear when exactly David goes to visit Woods in the beginning, and how those conversations lead to the missions he goes on later. It felt very disjointed to me that one second we're talking to Woods, and the next we're hanging from the side of a mountain with nano gloves. For some reason. I guess I just felt like the missions in 2025 had poor context to them in the first half of the game. They pick up eventually, but at first I was a bit disoriented. Another way the cutscenes influenced my experience was the later ones with David and his team. These felt quite flat and didn't really serve to expand these characters for me. They just felt flat. Like the information they were conveying was so blatantly obvious it pulled me out of the experience. For example, this scene here.
You know what? This DeFalco guy could be fairly entertaining.
Fairly?
What do you say we blow off a little steam, huh? Throw a few punches first? Ooh.
You got it.
Come on, go suffer with me.
What did you just say? Come suffer what? These flashes I'm getting. Die. I know I was kidnapped the night my father died, but I could never see. It was Menendez. Did he kill my father?
I get that it's supposed to be this random thing that brings David back to a traumatic moment in his life, but I don't think I've ever heard someone say the phrase "suffer with me" in my day-to-day life. It just feels very contrived and too on the nose to work smoothly. Broadly speaking, although we see these characters outside of combat, it seems like they only ever talk about Menendez and their mission. We don't get much in the way of who they are or their backgrounds other than David, and maybe Salazar if his backstory is even to be believed. I wish we could have gotten more from this new crew, but what we did get was serviceable. I don't dislike them, but they did drag down the experience for me just a tad. As for the returning characters, they were fine. We got plenty of callbacks to the last game, and they acted in line with who they were in the previous title. The only issue I have with the entire past era is the CIA mole subplot you uncover for the best ending. Maybe I missed the memo, but I don't understand what the purpose of that was other than to say Menendez had people on the inside. I thought it was implying that Hudson was the mole, but that theory was destroyed when Menendez manipulated and killed him in Suffer With Me. So, what was the point of this? The characters make a big deal out of it in that same mission, but it doesn't seem to serve anything other than to say Hudson might not be trustworthy. I don't know. If anyone has any ideas or can clarify this for me in the comments, it'd be greatly appreciated. To close out my character critique, I want to touch on Raul Menendez, the big bad of this game. My thoughts on him are pretty straightforward. He's a well-written, well-realized character, but he's got way too much plot armor. What I mean is, his backstory and motivations are compelling and properly fleshed out, but he just cannot lose until the story needs him to. I get that he's the main villain and that he can't die in the 80s, but still, the dude never seems to lose and is always one step ahead. So, when we finally get to him in the end, it doesn't feel earned, it feels convenient. That's not to say the ending is bad, I just wish it had been built up to better. I hate it so much when powerful characters are only powerful until it's time for them to lose. Like, imagine if in Dragon Ball Z, Goku beat Frieza without going Super Saiyan because the story called for it. That would suck. Instead, the legend of the Super Saiyan is built up throughout the arc, and Goku gets his ass beat until he achieves the form. That is a satisfying way to tear down a powerful villain, not what we got. That's all I've really got for the series critique, however. Everything else about this game's campaign was a highlight. The customizable loadouts added a touch of player choice / customization that was sorely missing from previous games. Having multiple endings added a ton of replayability that blended with the loadouts very nicely, since second playthroughs could feel less repetitive with different weapons. especially if you take the 2025 weapons back to the 80s. The game is also not afraid to slow it down from time to time, like in the intro to Karma or Suffer With Me, where you just walk around and talk for a bit before the action pops off. For what little characterization our future crew got, this small sequence added quite a bit, especially for Harper. What really got me, though, was the contrast between the past and present. I talked about it throughout the story, but I really want to drive the point home here. Having us begin the game in the past, with a level that could have easily been in the first Black Ops, was genius. It primed players with a familiar experience that would then be flipped on its head with the first future mission. To go from classic COD to the new expanded style was a crazy twist in the best way possible. And it doesn't stop with just the first levels, it continues through the entire game, ever expanding and differentiating the two eras through gameplay. Obviously, they're total opposites stylistically, but it would have been so easy for Treyarch to just do that. But they didn't. They made each era feel distinct through the gameplay options given to the player. In the past, you've got your gun and maybe some air support. In the future, you've got your gun, air support, drones, mechs, active camouflage, a sick sniper that can penetrate damn near anything, and goddamn X-ray scopes. Oh, and all those machines you fight alongside? Yeah, you can more often than not control them if you desire. Which is another strength of the 2025 missions. You don't have to interact with the new systems if you don't want to, other than in a few set pieces. And, just like in Black Ops 1, Treyarch ported over plenty of weapons from their previous game to make the past levels feel more authentic and serve as callbacks for fans. This decision, sadly, didn't bleed over to the multiplayer, but it did for zombies, allowing weapons like the AK, FAL, and Galil to appear in that mode. I understand they probably wanted multiplayer's tone and style to be consistent, but it would have been cool to let us use all the weapons they brought back. For better or worse, this would happen in Black Ops 3, but fuck loot boxes. All my homies hate loot boxes. So, that is everything I wanted to say about Black Ops 2. I hope you enjoyed. Real quick, I just wanted to have a little heart-to-heart here with you guys at the end of the video. I promise I will try not to make this too long. Just to say, first of all, thank you so much for watching. This is a super long video, the longest I've ever made, I think, ever, in any YouTube channel I've ever had, or especially on this one. And it means a lot that you've gotten this far, so thank you if you are indeed hearing this. The second thing I wanted to talk about was what's coming next. Obviously, the next logical choice for me to do would be to do Black Ops 3 and then Black Ops Cold War to round out the Call of Duty videos, the Call of Duty retrospectives, at least for the Black Ops series. But I don't think I want to do that, at least not right away. And I say that because the process of making these Black Ops retrospectives has been very samey. You know, I played the games, I write the script, and the script format has been very, very similar between the last video and this one. You know, I kind of do a little intro, I do an in-depth analysis where I talk about the story and things I like about the story as we go along, I do my closing thoughts, and then there's the conclusion. And while I don't think I will stray too far from that format in future retrospectives, I do want to take a bit of a break. Like, I'd like to shift to something else. And so, I think what I'm going to do is my next retrospective is most likely going to be on the original Metroid game, or games. I don't know if I'm going to do separate videos for Metroid 1 and 2, because they are very small games. You know, the first one on the NES isn't super big. It can be completed in like an afternoon if you really, you know, put your mind to it and have a guide on hand. And I think the same thing can be said for Metroid 2. So, yeah, those are the games I want to cover next. And I say that mostly because those games don't particularly have a lot in the way of story. I mean, there is a story, it's just not nearly as in-depth as, say, Black Ops 1 or 2. So it makes a lot more sense to... I guess what I'm trying to say is that with those games and those retrospectives, I can focus more on the gameplay, which is something I want to, I guess, improve at. I would like to be able to discuss gameplay a little more than story, and I've wanted to cover all the Metroid games, or I want to cover all the Metroid games eventually, so I think this is a good place to start, and I guess we'll just see where it goes from there. After I do the video or videos on the first 2 Metroid games, maybe I'll go back to Black Ops 3 and do Black Ops Cold War and round it out then. But at that point, we're just talking, really far in the future. So the next big video project will more than likely be the Metroid retrospective. So I hope you're excited about that. I guess as well, I would also like to expand my horizons of games. I don't want to be known just for making Call of Duty retrospectives. Like, I want to expand a little bit. I want to cover more than just Call of Duty. I would like to cover a wide variety of games as time goes on. So I guess I want to start the ball early on the diversification, if you will. But that is the next big project. The next big project is going to be the retrospective on Metroid and Metroid 1 and 2. But I do also want to try and fill the gaps a little bit between the retrospectives. Just because, again, it's all in the name of diversification. Like, I want to have a lot of different stuff on my channel, because I'm a very creative person, and I know that sounds very weird to say, but like, I have a lot of interests in a lot of different things, not just the retrospectives. So the traditional kind of unscripted videos will continue. I will be making those occasionally as they come up. I would even like to sprinkle in some Let's Plays here and there. I'd like to do some streams if possible. All that stuff. Like, these are all things I want to put up on the channel. Namely, though, I would like to post some short stories. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the channel, but I am an avid creative writer. I do like writing, fiction, and I think this YouTube channel could be a good way for me to share that with other people, with the wide world, the internet, whatever. And I'm lucky enough to have a friend who has a God-given voice, and he is willing to, in fact, not even willing, he wants to record the voiceovers for me. He wants to narrate my stories for me. So I don't know when exactly one of those will be coming out, but just know that might be coming between the Metroid video and this one. So, but yeah, that's all I really got to say. I feel that this conclusion may be getting a little long-winded, so thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to, and yeah, that's all I really got to say. So make sure you take care of yourself, get plenty of rest, drink lots of water, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.